For months, I've been reading articles and commentary about how much President Donald Trump and his family are enriching themselves off of the presidency. I'm David Kirkpatrick. I'm a staff writer for the New Yorker magazine. No one I talked to could put a figure on it. No one could tell me just how much he'd made. And at the same time, I was increasingly puzzled that more people didn't seem to care, that the public more or less was shrugging at the way the Trump family was monetizing the presidency. So I set out to try to come up with a number, to try to count for myself how much money the Trump family was making more or less off the presidency, money that in some way depended on his status as president. The problem of a potential conflict of interest posed for President Trump because of his business interests has been there from the beginning. Around the time that he began preparing to run for office, around 2015, The Apprentice was well off the air. The Celebrity Apprentice, its kind of gimmicky successor, was also dwindling in the ratings.
Hey, Duncan, Don, we're up.
Donald, come here!
There's some evidence to suggest that he needed something new to keep his name in the public eye. As part of the backlash against him, a number of people brought lawsuits. He now owes $500 million or so to the state of New York because of their fraud case against him.
We did nothing wrong. There were no victims. The bank loves us. The bank testified.
And he owes another $88 million or so to E. Jean Carroll, the writer who sued him for defamation and sexual assault years ago. So arguably, he was really in kind of a tight place when he went into the presidency the first time, and a much tighter place the next time. I was personally astonished to see just how much his financial position has improved just 6 months after he came back into the White House. The obvious place to start was Mar-a-Lago. Trump is the first president to sell access to himself and his inner circle for personal profits. That is, this is a private club that people pay to join, and what they get is a chance to mingle with Trump and his friends. Before he first won election, the initiation fee to join the club was $100,000. As of last fall, it was poised to go up to $1 million. Doing a little bit of math based on the revenue he's disclosed on his personal financial disclosure forms and the costs over time, I concluded that he had made about $125 million in extra profits in Mar-a-Lago because of his presidencies. After that, I looked at his campaign fundraising. Now, campaign fundraising is generally a whole different thing. Laws restrict candidates or politicians from using that money for personal purposes. In Trump's case, those boundaries are a little bit fuzzier. For one thing, he quite conspicuously sells what looks like campaign merchandise through his personal online store. If you're a Trump supporter, you might really believe you're supporting the MAGA movement and its causes when you buy this stuff, but in fact, the money is actually going to the Trump Organization and to Donald Trump. We're talking about things like a Gulf of America baseball hat, $50, a pair of Trump beer koozies, $18, Trump flip-flops, $40. In the last year, he's actually branched out from selling the merchandise through the store to a couple of special lines of products, and that includes $2.8 million from Trump watches, $2.5 million from, quote, sneakers and fragrances, and $3 million from an illustrated book called Save America, as well as $1.3 million from the God Bless the USA Bible, also known as the Trump Bible. So all of that came to $27.7 million. In some ways, this is almost like a fashion designer setting up a table in front of a department store to sell knockoffs of their own goods at the expense of their shareholders. So that came to about more than $17 million in income over the last several years. Now, on top of that, there's another way that Trump has found, and that is his legal fees. A political campaign fund for a candidate can't spend money on personal legal fees. But he discovered that if he converted a campaign fund into a political action committee, it could. And he's used his political action committee to cover more than $100 million in personal legal fees. So all in all, I'm going to call that a total of about $127.7 million in enrichment through those campaign funds, either in merch or legal fees. Next, I looked at the DC Hotel, the Trump International Hotel in Washington, which during his first term was really the biggest subject of allegations of corruption or financial enrichment.
This is the most coveted piece of real estate in Washington, D.C., the best location.
What I found there was, all in all, those allegations were overblown. Really, in retrospect, it looks like the Trump Association drove away as many people as it attracted. As much as some people might have gone there to show their support for Trump, an equal number of people probably stayed away because they didn't want to get caught up in an influence scandal, or they didn't like the president. It now turns out that after Trump sold the hotel, it's ultimately done better as a Waldorf Astoria. So I concluded that spending at his hotels by government agencies or by influence seekers looking to curry favor probably came out to be a wash. The amount of money he made from that is probably zero. Next, I turn to the Persian Gulf. The Persian Gulf has been a key locus for a lot of the Trump money-making. In retrospect, the Persian Gulf always posed a kind of ethical challenge and financial opportunity.
Do you think Biden would be doing it? I don't think so.
The first member of the Trump family who seems to have taken advantage of this was Jared Kushner, who was Trump's Middle East envoy in his first term. Shortly after Trump left the White House in 2021, Jared Kushner was back over in Saudi Arabia soliciting investments for a new private equity firm he'd founded, Affinity Partners. The Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, the public investment fund, has a panel of esteemed experts that it calls on to give advice about new investments. They said unanimously that he had no experience in private equity, no track record. They were overruled. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, decided to go ahead anyway. And so the Saudis put in $2 billion. Kushner continued to raise money almost exclusively from foreign sources. By the end of last year, he had brought in a total of $4.8 billion in assets under management. Quite a bit of that also from the United Arab Emirates and the Qataris. Just from management fees, he would earn the equivalent right now of $320 million over the next 10 years. Then I turn to some of the real estate deals the Trump family has recently done in the Persian Gulf. Despite a lot of effort over the years, the Trumps had only managed to land one deal in the high-dollar Persian Gulf. There's a golf course in Dubai that pays the Trumps to license their name and a management fee. And that's been very lucrative for them over the years. Now, they signed that deal before he first went into the White House, so I'm not going to count that, but it provided a sort of benchmark to try to figure out what he'd made from some of the other deals. And in the last couple years, those have come hot and heavy. In late 2022, after Trump was already pretty much the presumptive Republican presidential nominee, he signed an anomalous new deal with a Saudi company called Dar Al Arkan to build a vast new project in Oman, in Muscat. And that was followed, after he was elected, by no fewer than 4 other deals with the same Saudi company in Dubai, Jeddah, Riyadh, and Doha. Some of those are 10-year deals, some of those are 30-year deals, but I calculated that the present value of all that money comes out to $105.8 million. A lot of attention has been paid to Trump's announcement a few months ago that the Emir of Qatar had gifted him a new private jet, the former royal jet of the Qatari royal family. So Trump announced that that was a gift to the Pentagon, which would use it as a new Air Force One. But when he left office, he said it would then pass to the Trump Presidential Library. Realistically, no other president would have gone to the Persian Gulf and come back with a free gift of a private jet. And there's no doubt that the Qataris would not have given him that private jet if he wasn't the president of the United States. Right now, according to the New York Times, its value on the used jet market is about $150 million. A lot of the Trump real estate deals are legitimate in the sense that they were the business the Trumps were in before he ever got into politics.
I always consider myself a deal junkie. I call it a deal junkie, but
the recent deal in Vietnam is a different story. When polls show that Trump was almost certain to return to the White House, the General Secretary of the Vietnamese Communist Party, who rules the country, To Lam, visited New York. And while in New York, To Lam oversaw the signing of an agreement for a new golf resort. That's a golf resort to be built in cooperation with the Trump Organization, licensing the Trump name. We don't know how much that project is going to make. It's very, very large, including 54 holes of golf. It'll occupy a space 3 times as large as Central Park. Trump has already reported $5 million in licensing income. So I figured conservatively, over 10 years, we can assume it's going to bring in at least $50 million. The present value of that to Trump is about $40 million. The next section I'm going to call the corporate squeeze. In the past, presidential nominees or presidents have never filed lawsuits against media companies. It seems like an unfair use of power. Nonetheless, President Trump, who had really a very dismal record at suing media companies in the past. Throughout his career, he's filed about a dozen lawsuits that have either been dismissed or withdrawn against media companies of one kind or another.
Because when somebody says something, I think you have to refute it, right?
$15 million from ABC News, a payment of $22 million from Meta, the parent company that owns Facebook, a payment of $10 million from X, formerly known as Twitter, and a payment of $16 million from CBS News, a unit of Paramount.
Boy, look at all the cameras back there. That's amazing. It's the fake news.
On top of that, he and his wife have also sold to Amazon.com the rights to make a movie of her life. Amazon agreed to pay her $40 million to make that movie. Her cut comes out to about $28 million. That's money that he can use to support his post-presidential lifestyle. So all in all, I added up these payments from various corporations, and that comes out to another $91 million. Now, Truth Social. Arguably, Truth Social, his social media platform, would not exist without his tenure in the White House. And he continues to use presidential statements made over Truth Social to draw customers to the platform. Its user base is basically his MAGA supporters. So definitely that's in the column of presidential profits. But how much is it worth? It lost more than $400 million last year. A lot of institutional investors consider it a meme stock. That is, the parent company that owns Truth Social has a stock that goes up and down based primarily on how people feel about President Trump. So I consulted an eminent forensic accountant to try to come up with a ballpark figure for what it might be worth. He told me probably it's worth someplace between 4 and 20 million. To be generous, he suggested tacking on another 5 million, so we'll put that at 25 million in personal profit. Donald Trump Jr., the president's oldest son, recently made news by circulating plans to create a new private club in Washington, D.C. to be called Executive Branch. The most notable thing about this club is that its members include Donald Trump Jr. and a number of other people close to the president. At an opening party in June, they drew at least 7 cabinet members. The club made a lot of headlines by asking for initiation fees that range as high as $500,000 a person. 20 founding members paid that high initiation fee. Another 180 or so initial members paid a much lower initiation fee of about $100,000. They said to me convincingly that probably they don't really expect to make money, that their operating costs will pretty quickly burn through all of that. I'm not going to add that money to the Trump's personal profits. At the same time, Donald Trump Jr., who's setting up that club, is also in business with another one of the founders, Omid Malik, a financier. And that relationship is much more lucrative for him. Omid Malik also runs a venture capital firm called 1789 Capital. Last fall, Malik brought Donald Trump Jr. into the firm as a partner. I talked to consultants in the business who guessed that he's probably making about $200,000 a year. On top of that, the fund has raised about $1 billion. The partners split about 20% of the profits. I calculated that the present value of the money that Donald Trump Jr. stands to make from 1789 Capital comes out to $19.6 million. Much of the money that the Trump family has made in recent months has come in the form of crypto, which is something that the president himself used to be quite skeptical of.
The United States will be the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world, and we'll get it done.
He got into releasing NFTs, non-fungible tokens.
America needs a superhero. I'm doing my first official Donald J. Trump NFT collection right here and right now. They're called Trump Digital Trading Cards.
Trump got into this business in 2022 and began selling a variety of cartoons of himself. Trump, as a biker with a guitar, Trump as a muscly superhero. We calculate that with another NFT sold by his wife, that comes to $14.4 million. The next Trump family crypto business is called World Liberty Financial. This was announced last fall during the campaign. Trump took time out to participate in a desultory 2-hour live stream. It involves his sons and Zach Witkoff, the son of his diplomatic envoy, Steve Witkoff, the first thing that it did was begin selling a special crypto token which would entitle the owner to vote on whatever its future plans would be. The company said that the Trump family, or entities related to the Trump family, would get about 75% of the proceeds of those token sales. That came to about $550 million by around the time of the inauguration. The Trump family's cut of that is $412.5 million. Another way that the Trump family has made money off of crypto has actually taken them back to the Persian Gulf. Zach Witkoff announced a few months ago at a conference in Dubai that a company owned by the royal family of the United Arab Emirates was going to buy $2 billion of what's known as stablecoin from World Liberty Financial. Now, stablecoin is a special kind of crypto that's supposed to basically replicate the value of a dollar. Between the time when they sell the stablecoin and take your dollar, they can invest it and earn a little bit of interest on that money. At current treasury yields, more than 4%. The Emirati investment of $2 billion is a profit opportunity for them as long as the stablecoin is not redeemed. Importantly, the Emiratis bought that stablecoin in order to use it to invest in another crypto company, Binance. Binance controls when that stablecoin is redeemed. I'm going to assume that Binance is not going to redeem that stablecoin while Trump is still in the White House. I calculated that by the time Trump leaves the White House for the second time, World Liberty Financial will have made more than $280 million in interest on the deposits behind that stablecoin. The Trump family's cut of that is about $168 million. After that deal was announced, another Emirati entity, a foundation, kind of a shadowy foundation, called Aqua One that no one knows much about, also announced that it was going to spend $100 million buying World Liberty governance or voting tokens. 75% of that goes to the Trumps. So all in all, that's $243 million in crypto money that the Trump family has made from the United Arab Emirates. What is now known as American Bitcoin started out as a partnership between the Trump brothers and a small securities firm called Dominari. Dominari and the Trump brothers set up a joint venture that was going to invest in data centers. It was going to be owned 1/3 by Dominari, 2/3 by the Trump family. About a month after they announced it, however, it took a different turn. This Bitcoin mining company, Hut 8, contributed $100 million of equipment to this joint venture that the Trumps had set up with Dominari. In exchange, Hut 8 is going to own 80% of the venture. Since the Trump brothers had 2/3 of that joint venture, they now have about 13% of the new company. So the Trumps, through this complicated transaction, have come away with an ownership interest equivalent to about $13 million in Bitcoin mining machinery. In the last few months, the company that owns Truth Social has done something very different and totally unrelated to social media. Trump Media and Technology Group has decided to go into the crypto business, mainly by selling stock at an inflated meme coin-like price just because of their association with the presidency.
It's really happening. Bitcoin is really happening. Crypto generally.
The company has capitalized on the irrationally or unusually high price of its shares to sell stock in order to raise money. And with that money, they've gone out and bought Bitcoin. Trump Media Technology Group now holds about $760 million in cash, and on top of that, about $2.3 or $2.4 billion in Bitcoin. Trump now holds about a 42% stake in Trump Media and Technology Group. I'm going to say that 42% stake in the company gives him about a 42% ownership interest in its pile of Bitcoin and cash. After all, the company could feasibly just sell all of that and dividend the money to shareholders. If they did, that would bring President Trump about $1.3 billion. The Trump family's last crypto business is really remarkable. 8 years after the family first said that it would never do anything even perceived as exploiting the presidency, I think this new venture has distilled that exploitation to its purest possible form. What they've sold is known as a meme coin. That is, a form of crypto, a form of cryptocurrency that doesn't even really purport to be anything more than a novelty or a gimmick or a kind of online joke. It's just sold as a bit of fun. In this case, the fun of paying money to President Donald Trump. After introducing the meme coin shortly before the inauguration, Trump came forward again in April and announced that in fact he was going to host a private dinner for the top 220 holders of his meme coin, re-incentivizing people to go out and buy as much as they can. And I was there to try to watch the attendees come and go. By that time, we estimate that the revenue that he'd brought in through sales of the meme coin, some trading fees, and another meme coin sold by his wife had come to at least $385 million. I've tried to give the president the benefit of the doubt at every turn. I've used present value calculations so that I'm not counting money he's going to earn in 30 years with money he's earned today. And I've tried to come up with a baseline, so in all likelihood, he's actually going to earn a lot more than this. I asked myself, why does it matter? You know, a lot of this stuff is publicly disclosed. He doesn't make any secret of his money making. In some ways, the people that he's squeezing the most out of are his own supporters. Adding it all up, I come to about $3.4 billion. The thing that stands out after tallying up all this money is just the almost desperate eagerness. It's as though the Trump family really is not missing any opportunity to make as much money as they can off of his presidency. And that made me wonder even more, what might these people be getting for the money they're paying the president? If he wants it that badly, what do you think they're getting out of it? And that's the question that I was left with.